Hey guys, welcome to a Story with Rory podcast. I am your host, Rory, and we have our last author tonight for Authors Week. Very special guest, Damien Hunter. Hey Damien, how's it going?
Very good, Rory. How are you?
Pretty good. Where are you calling from? USA?
Yes, California.
Awesome. Ooh, pretty state.
Yeah, I think everybody thinks we're surfers and potheads out here, but that's not the case.
Right. Every time I've been there, it's been absolutely just breathtaking. So,
Yeah.
you've written a book. Go ahead and just walk us through how your book came to be and the idea behind it, kind of like what inspired you to write it. And you can just start from the story or however you want to do that.
Well, okay, this is a spy story set in Central America circa 1983. And the premise is that you've got a right wing regime supported by the United States. They've got a leftist insurgency that they're trying to fight. And the United States, for some reason, decides to ship the dictator of this country a series of cruise missiles. Well, he blows a brain cell and uses one of them to destroy a hospital for reasons no one can understand. But the guerrillas are so outraged by that that they attack the army base where these missiles are held at great cost to themselves. They lose a lot of people, but they seize these missiles and they carry them away. Well, my agent is an African American agent who is sent to. Sorry about that noise.
Those are
The
fine.
dog. He's sent to infiltrate the guerrilla movement,
Hmm.
identify where those missiles are, and arrange for their extraction before the guerrillas can figure out how to fire them off against the presidential palace
Right.
and take out the dictator. Um, and it goes from there. But his mission is not quite that easy because he's following an agent who has been killed 2 days in, and
Hmm.
so they sent him kind of more or less openly attached to the embassy type of thing. My guy, they send in undercover as a left wing journalist. So his job is to pose as a left wing freelance journalist,
Oh, that's cool.
antagonize the government with stories about how they're prosecuting this war against the insurgency, at the same time coming to the attention, hopefully, of the guerrillas to the extent that they feel the need. Hey, they see this guy as an ally. Maybe he can get American public opinion on our side. Let's extend some protection to him. But he's got
Nice.
to induce them to go through that thought process before the government is so upset with him that they kill him, that the secret
Dang.
police take him out. So it's a delicate dance.
Yeah. That's wild. So, how long is your book? How many pages? How many chapters?
It is just under 40 chapters. It's last I checked about 380 pages. It took quite a while. I think I wrote it in about a year and a half. The interesting thing is it's been percolating in my head for about 40 years because
Yeah.
it's set obviously in 1983. I turned 18 that year, and at that time in that era, myself and a lot of my cohorts in high school, some of us were absolutely certain we
Hmm.
were going to be drafted in a second Vietnam War in Central America. People kind
Oh,
of forget what it was
absolutely.
like.
Hmm.
Ronald Reagan was in office. He was very much a vocal, active anti-communist, and he made it very clear we were not going to tolerate any kind of exporting of revolution in the Western Hemisphere.
Hmm.
And in fact, that year he invaded Grenada on the intel that the Grenadian government was getting a little too cozy with Fidel Castro.
Right.
And so there's always some question as to whether that was legitimate, but there were some connections with Cuba that were going on. But and that event, the invasion of Grenada, actually figures at the end of the book. So I try to weave in actual historical events to give it a sense of authenticity.
Right.
There's also things like new technologies, like my agent is sent down to Central America as a freelance journalist with a laptop. Well, there weren't a whole lot of laptops back in 1983. The first one I used was about 1989 or 1990. So I wrote into the story that this was an experimental model only being issued to special forces, the military, and intelligence people, because very often that's the case. The
Right.
technologies we get, like, cell phones, handheld cell phones, the military were probably using that 3 to 5 years before civilians got their hands on. So I tried to make it realistic in that sense, as well as little things like the music I
Mm-hmm.
think one of the in the first chapter, there's a car radio going on, and a hit song by the Eurythmics is on, and they
Nice.
hit the top of the charts in I think September of '83. So
Nice.
little things like that.
Very good. Very good. So is this book completed, like as far as being published and all that?
Oh yeah, it's done. It's out. It's available on Amazon. It's the Madrinego Missiles
Okay.
by Bootstrap Publications,
Okay.
and it's a very affordable. I think $13.99 something. It's definitely. I had another publisher that had it broken into 2 volumes earlier, and I didn't like that at all. They were too expensive, so I've consolidated it. I have a new publisher, and it's now at a very, frankly, much more affordable rate. I mean, I can remember when I first got into spy novels and wanting to read fiction, I would walk into, back in the 80s, I'm dating myself, but I'd walk into a B. Dalton's or a Double A, you would
Mm-hmm.
get a book for a paperback for $5.
Oh,
Well, that's
easy.
kind of
Yeah.
stuck in my mind. And those
Mm-hmm.
days are long gone. Now it's like
Yeah.
15, 20. But I still feel like, you got to make these things affordable if you want people to read them.
Right. Did you do the ebook option as well, or do you just do in a hard or
Yes.
paperback? Okay. Cool.
Yes, it's actually, I don't think it's available in ebook now, but it will be very soon because I've been pushing for that. I know that a lot of folks will read in ebook format only.
Right.
I'm not one of them, but that's a growing demographic, and you got to go where the market takes you.
Right. For sure. For sure. Um, what else? Is this your first book that you've written?
No, this book is actually the prequel of another book that I published in 2004
Oh, nice.
that was called Secrets of State, and that involved the same agent.
Mm-hmm.
And that book was about an assassination in Costa Rica of a Texas oil baron who had developed a synthetic fuel. And the whole purpose in killing him was to undermine and destroy a synthetic fuel that he had developed, which, unlike many synthetic fuels, this one was so good that it was a major threat to the global petrochemical, empire.
Right.
And so this group of international cartel basically gets together and decide this guy won't share the technology. He's made that clear. He wants to drive us out of business. He's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
So my agent gets sent down in what, unbeknownst to him, is a rogue operation. And the agency sends him down with they lie to him about the reasons for this particular target having to be removed. They say he's selling all kinds of weapons. He's selling weapons to terrorists, etc. They also know that he's drug smuggling, but that's not what's getting him his death sentence.
Right.
So he's smuggling drugs actually to finance the R&D for the synthetic fuel. Because he doesn't have enough money, even though he's a Texas oil billionaire. That's not enough.
Right.
He doesn't have enough capital to finance his R&D, so he starts financing, with drugs. But the reason he's been targeted is he's threatening a global empire. The world's economy is run on oil.
Right. Right.
So that book is set 6 years. Madrinego Missiles is set at a point in time 6 years before Secrets of State. So it's really a prequel.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
That's a very good accomplishment,
Yeah, I feel that way. I just wish I need more, marketing and exposure because it hasn't sold a lot, but it hasn't had a serious marketing effort behind it. But I think the premise, the plot, is something that people are interested in. It was topical
sure.
when it was first released. It's still topical today.
Yeah, especially I could see that being turned into some kind of Hollywood idea too, into a film or like a series.
Yeah, and there's a buddy of mine in LA who he knows some folks in Hollywood, and he actually arranged for me to have dinner with a Hollywood producer. And
Nice.
so I brought my book and everything. This is about a year ago, and we had dinner at Musso and Frank's, which is a Hollywood location.
Mm-hmm.
And when I'm sitting there with a Hollywood producer at dinner, I actually began to have second thoughts because I keep thinking of there's so many excellent books that I've read, adventure and spy stories, that once they brought to the silver screen, they just didn't measure up to the book at all.
Yeah.
Um, Even a straight adventure story. Like one of the best World War II stories I've ever seen on film is The Guns of Navarone. Well, when I read the
Hmm.
book by Alistair MacLean, I went away roundly disappointed. I mean, it was a mediocre adventure story at best. So
Right.
whoever wrote the screenplay for The Guns of Navarone, they deserve kudos and the Oscar for best screenplay because they took a mediocre story and turned it into an Oscar-winning blockbuster of a World War II epic.
Right, for sure.
And so, I think about things like that. It's like, well, I'd rather have it not made at all than have it
Hmm.
made and be botched. Somebody
Right.
does a terrible job on it. And you hear stories about the one story that sticks in my mind is Clive Cussler, who's written God knows how many adventure stories, and he did one movie deal, I think maybe 20 years ago, and he was so disappointed with it that he just said never again.
Dang.
He
Yeah.
walked away. I'll never work with Hollywood. So I was
Mm,
a little bit hesitant,
I
and
bet.
and it turns out I haven't heard from the guy, so he turned out not to be terribly interested. And in a way, I was relieved, which
Right.
is kind of ironic. You would not think you would have that feeling when you get a chance to have your book on the silver screen.
You have that hunch, like, well, if it's not going to be what it's supposed to be, I don't want it to be a bomb or anything like that.
Right, and you see you hear about this a lot, where a person of color writes a story, and it's to a degree ethnocentric. It's about
Hmm.
Asians, or it's about Latinos, and it's about African Americans. And Hollywood's first thing is, well, let's get Brad Pitt to do the part.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
Yeah.
Brad
Yeah.
Pitt. Brad Pitt is a fabulous actor. I love Brad Pitt, but do I
Right.
want him to play my character who is
Right.
intentionally African American? No, I don't.
Right. Yeah. They
So
don't
it's
have
that
the
kind of
right,
thing.
yeah, the right concept and the right,
Yeah,
you know, uh, it's basically like the book's attitude and how it's written. And it's like you have to portray your actors and your story plot around that book, around it's like the charisma, how the book's written.
yeah, and the fact that in this case the character is African American is kind of critical because he's not overtly political, but he's definitely someone who, if you scratch the surface,
Hmm.
this guy is an African American agent. He's trained at Annapolis. He was a former fighter pilot, so he's a touch conservative on the surface. But if you scratch the surface, he goes to his politics from left of center.
Hmm.
And the part of the plot is what happens when someone like that, now that he's been, he's trained as an agent, there's a certain amount of indoctrination, um, is put into a situation where he has to infiltrate an indigenous guerrilla movement that is only fighting for its freedom. And in a way, they're kind of philosophically consistent with the founding fathers. We don't want foreign tyranny. Get
Right.
get the British out of here on no taxation without representation,
Hmm.
that type of thing. And we should be masters of our own destiny. Well, that's what these revolutionaries are about. And it's like he's thinking, this kind of doesn't make sense. So he has an evolution during the course of the story. And by the way, because of the fact that his news stories have antagonized the government as they're intended to do, and have brought him to the attention of the guerrillas, but the
Hmm.
guerrillas don't quite, take him into their protection quite soon enough. So he does at one point. Uh, at one point, the secret police try to kill him. He narrowly avoids being killed,
Right.
and after that, he's arrested and beaten for the
Oh,
better part of
dang.
a week. And they deny that they even have him in custody, type of thing. So the only reason he gets out is the uh, the guy that he's working for as a freelance journalist is a wealthy newspaper publisher, and
Ah,
he can afford to antagonize the government because he's part of the landed wealthy landowning class. Although he's
right.
considered a traitor to that class, but he's still got the leeway to cause the government a certain amount of trouble because he's quote unquote untouchable. And
Hmm.
he agitates to the point that the U.S. embassy gets involved and they rescue my character Leighton. So it's but he's nearly beaten to death prior to that happening.
Man.
So he kind of, although technically he's there as an American agent of a country that's supporting
Right.
this government has basically turned on him because, in their view, he's agitating the natives, and
Right.
they don't want that. So and because of that, because he experiences directly the brutalization, the brutal treatment of this regime, just like he was any other citizen in that country.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of starts to change his thinking about, wait a minute, maybe, the guerrillas have the right idea. Maybe I'm on the wrong side here, even though
Right.
I've got to infiltrate these guys. I've got to gain their trust and then undermine them by taking these weapons or arranging for them to be extracted.
Right.
So there's that whole dynamic there, and of course there's a beautiful guerrilla leader. So they start to have a bit of a relationship. There's an attraction between them, but if she finds out who he really is, he's as good as dead.
Yeah.
So there's all that going on.
That's awesome. It almost sounds kind of like a James Bond meets something else, like it sounds
I
cool.
like to call it James Bond meets Alfred Hitchcock.
Yeah, yeah. I
I do
couldn't think
try
of
to
what it
keep
meant,
that.
but yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I do try to keep at least a sense of suspense. And maybe not Hitchcock. Maybe that's not the best answer, but I do try to keep
Right.
a sense of suspense through the story.
Right. Well, it sounds very well written, and the plot sounds very interesting for sure. Um, I guess after the show, just send me that link of where people can buy it, and I'll go ahead and put it in the description on my YouTube channel, and people can go there, and it'll direct some traffic to your book for sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Happy to do that. Thank you.
yeah, that's an awesome idea. You're like the I think third author I've had from Bootstrap Publishing, or sorry, Bootstrap Publications,
Yes.
and every one of y'all's books has just been awesome. Like I hear it, I love it, and I'm just like, wow, these are some well written stories, and these are some very creative ideas.
That's good to hear. I think we try to. I think Miriam, the owner, tries to work with authors who are a little bit off the beaten path. It's not quite your run of the mill, whatever your run of the mill adventure story, your run of the mill love story, your run of the mill detective story, whatever the genre is, the authors are looking for.
Right.
Something
Yeah.
a little different, a little edgy about it.
Yeah. You never know. Things can always blow up and be like, wow, you get a movie deal. But like you said, you got to keep it original. You got to keep it um, great. I'm not. I try to read as much as I can. I'm not like I've always been a movie guy, but I try to read. I think it's just the
Yeah.
whole sitting there for a long time attention span. I have to take breaks. If I can take breaks, then I'm good. But
Yeah, and it's harder now. Books have so much more, many other forms of entertainment to compete with than they
right,
did even 25 years ago. So it's tough, and it's hard just nowadays trying to carve out the time to do that kind of thing.
yeah,
We're also busy. It seems like we're working all the time, and there's all this pressure to produce, and working from home a lot. Even when you're not in the office, you're thinking about it. So it's harder. It's harder for me, and I love to read, but it's hard to consistently carve out the time. I might get 10 minutes in the course of a day
right,
to sit down and read something I want to read.
right.
So I
I
can relate.
I started. I have one book that I've written. It's just a children's book. It's nothing fancy, nothing special. But I had that idea since 2020, and within this last year, I've actually had the time to sit down and finish everything and produce it and all that. But man, the editing and
Oh yeah,
the logistics to getting it out there is
a
like
lot of
learning
work. It's a heavy lift.
Chinese. Yeah, it's like what the heck am I doing? I don't know. My margin's got to be this big. The word spacing has to be like this. The story has to fit. It all has to flow, and it's just like I don't know. Part of me kind of feels like stars have to align for things to happen with a book.
Oh
but
yeah,
but yeah, I'm working on my second one. Um, it's called Galaxy Kid. It's about a kid that he's a. Sorry, I don't mean I'm off on a tangent, but is there one teenager who's starting a he's starting a new high school. His kid Sam. He has two best friends, and I guess his dad has been missing for 2 years. He lives in the suburb of California. Um, I think I made the name up of the town like Calwood. I don't know if that's a real suburb or not, but Calwood, California, and his dad's missing, And he finds out that his uncle Rick has been hiding in his dad's shop. His dad has an old shop, like an old automotive or workshop. And he finds his uncle out there, and his uncle's been staying out there for weeks, and Sam had no idea. And basically, his uncle had been running from government officials that drive like black SUVs, and no one knows who they work for, where they're from. But anyways, his uncle Rick has these blueprints for this spacecraft that he is like reverse engineered, and so he's basically starting this new high school with his best friends, keeping his uncle a secret. And
Mhm.
I've only gotten to where like their first day of school has started, and I'm in
Oh
like
wow.
chapter two. So I'm it's just so hard. My wife's like, just finish it, like work on it. I'm like, it's hard. Like it has to come to you in
Easier
a
said than done.
yeah, like it has to come to you in like a wave, kind of like the
Yeah.
thoughts and everything has to flow. But yeah, I know how you feel as far as like the brainstorming and getting the time
Yeah. No, that's
putting it
great.
in.
Children's books are incredibly important and hard to write, in my opinion. I've never done one. I'll probably never try, but they're a really important niche because some of the there was a Dr. Seuss book. I don't remember which one it was. I think it was Go Car Go or something,
Uh-huh.
where I made a huge impression on me as a kid. And I mean, like a toddler, 2 or 3 years old. And I bought it for my nephews and nieces once about a year ago. And this is the book that was first published in like the 60s.
Oh
And
man,
these kids went absolutely ape over this book. It
that's
was like, and
awesome.
her mother, my sister, their grandmother called and said, I don't know where you found these books, but you got a hit here. I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
that's
So
cool.
they're children's books are so important. They're a lot more important to their development than I think parents realize a lot of the time.
Right. Well,
So
that's
keep
cool. I mean, being an author, I don't consider myself an author, but I mean, someone that can write a 40 chapter book, that's like, I don't think I could ever,
you have to
nah.
be a little bit insane. Um, but I definitely think the phrase I use is the muse has to talk to you on
Right.
something that long. If the muse is not talking to me, I can't write. The
Right.
creative juices have to be flowing. It's all got to be in sync, like you said, and it that is a delicate process. It's not easy. You have to kind of go with whatever stimulates you, whatever's going to work, whether it's a piece of music or a physical space.
Right.
I have found a couple Christmases ago, I was actually trying to finish this book, and I was in the final stages, home stretch, like maybe the last 100 pages. And my cousin called me up and invited me to Christmas in Arizona, and I said, "Jen, I can't go." And she's like, "Well,
Hmm.
why?" I said, "I gotta finish this book." "Well, you can write here. We'll have a space in the trailer for you." I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
I have my space where I need to write. I can't just write any. I can't do it quote unquote anywhere. No,
Right.
that will not work." So yeah, so I was alone that Christmas, but I got my book finished.
Hey, it's worth it. I mean, there's times you have to do that.
Yeah.
I understand. Um, I guess one final question: what's down the line for you after this book that you've written? Like, what else is in store that fans might want to know about?
I am planning a whole series of books with this character. I've got maybe 100 pages on two other manuscripts already written.
Hmm.
And this definitely, there's going to be an evolution of things with this character, Leighton. He is next going to go after a Colombian drug lord who
Ooh, nice.
has, but it's different in that they're they target specific people in his organization, and it's like an international type of covert operation because it happens on three continents. They kill one guy in Belgium,
Hmm.
this guy who's a banker who is funneling money to the cartels, millions of dollars, and he's a money launderer.
Hmm.
There's another guy who is an attorney that is sort of a mastermind, and they get him on this character, Leighton, or his team that he puts together, gets the lawyer on board a 747 flying from New York to
Dang.
Paris. And that's a really tough one because there's a lot of subterfuge and, you can't get noticed, you can't get caught type of
Right.
thing. And if you are caught, you will be completely disavowed, even though this operation supposedly has the seal of approval of the president of the United States.
Oh,
Still,
dang.
it's that classic, as always, Mr. Phelps, if you or any of your team are caught or captured, you're on your
Yeah.
own type of
Security
thing.
clearance.
Right. We never heard of you if you get caught. So it goes from there, and then they eventually start to interdict his shipments and this is a completely illegal violating international gloves off type of operation where they actually go after the drug shipments, and they're sending fighter aircraft that have been painted over so that you can't easily tell that they're American, and they're
Right.
shooting down the planes that are smuggling the drugs in. And then eventually they go directly to like processing plants in Chile and not Chile, Colombia and Ecuador.
Mhm.
So it's really a hands-on. It's like, what would have happened if the U.S. government just decided, okay, we're going to get serious about drug interdiction, the hell with international law, the hell with the press, and we're just going to do it.
Right.
If you had somebody like that that was willing to just take the heat, this is how it would be done. That's the theme. And my agent Leighton, he's at the tip of the spear. He's the one going after doing this type of thing. So that's one plot. There's another one where he has to rescue a kidnapped nuclear physicist who's been kidnapped by terrorists who want to develop a plutonium bomb. So I got 3 or 4 more like that. So there are a series of these that I planned.
I don't know if you ever watched the show Stranger Things or ever a fan of any of that stuff. Have you ever seen it?
No, I haven't. What's it like?
And it's kind of like science fiction with, I'd say towards the later seasons, there's like spies and stuff like that to where they go to like Russia and they end up catching this, I guess I think he's a Russian scientist, basically. His name's Yuri. And he's like one of the brains behind building this. It's kind of like a drill weapon laser thing that basically tears into space and time and lets in this monster. And his partner, the guy that he was working with on the project, got killed by their dictator or whatever. But yeah, it's kind of, there's some stuff like that in the very season 4. So I mean, if you're into that stuff, that's an excellent show that would kind of have some of that, can't get caught, have to be stealth and all that. So yeah, I don't know. It's kind of reminded me of that. With your story, kind of reminded me of that, and like Mission Impossible, James Bond, like Splinter Cell, like the old video game, back in the day.
Oh yeah, I remember Splinter Cell.
Yeah, it's like you can't even like get seen at all. You have to go up against a crate, and if one of the guards catches you, it's like game's over.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I love that stuff, and I grew up watching the Sean Connery movies. I still think he's the best James Bond, although Daniel Craig is very close second.
Yeah, very close.
Mission Impossible. I loved that. I just ate and breathed that stuff when it was on TV. So I was definitely kind of weaned on that type of thing.
Right. Awesome. Well, I guess that concludes our episode tonight for A Story with Rory podcast Author Week. Damien, I thank you so much for being on the show, and it was a pleasure having you. And send me that link, and we'll put it in the description so everybody can go and get your book and get you some traffic.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely. You have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Bye. Hey guys, thanks for watching A Story with Rory. Don't forget to hit that bell, like, and subscribe for more content like this. And until then, we're out.